hearts of men. The Shadow knows.
I love The Shadow. The Shadow is a pulp hero icon created in 1930 to serve as radio host for Street and Smith's Detective Story Hour. He became so popular that he quickly got his own radio show and a line of pulp novels written under the pseudonym of Maxwell Grant. At the height of his popularity, he had the biggest radio show at the height of radio's popularity, and he was the original noir superhero and the main inspiration for Batman. He starred in hundreds of radio programs, over 300 pulp novels, countless comics, several film serials, and a 1994 film. But despite his prior popularity, the current right holders have done very little with the character and let him fall into obscurity. I first discovered The Shadow from my great-grandparents. They were familiar with the radio show, and so that was my first exposure to him. I also caught a lot of the references to him in things like Darkwing Duck and the Batman episode Beware of Grey Ghost. When I was in high school, I watched the 1994 film, but it wasn't until a few years later when YouTuber Razorfist did a video on the subject that I discovered the wider world of The Shadow and his mythos. When talking about The Shadow, it's important to draw the distinction between his pulp and radio personas. He was a more conventional hero with somewhat supernatural powers on radio, and because of censorship guidelines, he had to operate differently. He wasn't allowed to directly kill criminals, for instance. I love how the writers handle this, always finding creative ways to use the Shadow's powers to deal out justice. Using his mastery of the human mind to make a sniper hold a grenade for too long being my personal favorite.
I'll throw it down there among all those people. I've killed dozens of them. There. I pulled the pin. I'll throw it.
Danny, listen to me. Hold that hand grenade, Danny. Hold it tight, Danny Brecker. See your fingers tighten about it. Your mind obeys mine.
The radio version is a more conventional hero, and as such, can come off as old hat compared to the heroes he inspired like Batman and the Punisher. The pulp version is a whole different beast. He's much more of a force of nature, only coming in when the plot demands it. So the focus of the pulps is on his agents. In the first pulp, The Living Shadow, the Shadow himself doesn't have a whole lot of characterization going on, but the real main character, Harry Vincent, is fascinating and one of my favorite literary characters in the genre. The pulps, from what I've read, are well written enough. There is something cheap and disposable about them, but the plotting is usually airtight. Walter B. Gibson wrote most of the pulp novels, and he had a perfect grasp on his continuity and characters. Gibson was a decent enough writer quality-wise, but more importantly for Street and Smith, he could write fast. An entire novel every 2 weeks for years on end, only taking breaks to rest his hands and letting other writers fill out the frantic release schedule. The Shadow, in all his incarnations, is oozing with mythos and presence. He strikes a powerful figure. He is evil set against evil. He looks awesome, and the way he operates with his agents is just as fresh and unique now as it was 90 years ago, even as all his other defining qualities have been ripped off repeatedly. And that's why I love The Shadow.